Okay, now we're recording, and everyone's going to say hi.
Hi, Sophia!
So there's Trish saying hi, and the quieter voice was Heidi in the side. But we all say hi, my friend. Okay, so chapter 4, hopefully you're caught up and you have read it, and it was very funny. And I got a kick out of that, and so did Trish. I hope you did too. I think Heidi got a kick out of it, but if nothing else, you got a kick out of it listening to us. So we are now going to go on and read chapter 5. And chapter 5 is pretty funny because it's called Spite. And that's it. That's the title. Alright. So here we go. Okay. Miss Mayhew apparently had not given a single glance to the artist, as he sat opposite to her and but a little out of earshot. Indeed, so well did she simulate unconsciousness of his presence, that if it were not for an occasional glance from Mrs. Mayhew, he might have thought himself unnoticed. But something in that lady's manner, as caught by occasional glances, led him to suspect that he was the subject of their conversation. Remember? She was like, I'm not going to talk to him. I'm going to hate him. So there. But Ida's indifference was, in truth, only seeming, for although she never looked directly at him, she subjected his image, which was constantly flitting across the retina of her eye, to the closest scrutiny, and no act or expression of his escaped her. She was piqued by the fact that he showed no disturbed consciousness of her presence, and that his glance was occasionally as free and natural towards her as towards any other guest of the house. His bearing annoyed her excessively, for it seemed an easy and quiet assertion of indifference and superiority, two manifestations that were to her as objectionable as they were unusual. Neither in looks nor manner did she appear very agreeable during the brief time she spent in the public parlors. The guests of the house, even to the ladies who foresaw an eclipse of their own charms, were compelled to admit that she was very pretty. But it was a general remark that her face did not make or leave a very pleasant impression. Yeah, that too. Then Berg surmised that Stanton's disposition to tease and banter would lead him to repeat and, perhaps, distort anything he might say concerning the young lady, so he made no reference whatever to the Mayhews, but took pains to give the impression that he was deeply interested in the scenery. I shall probably be off with my sketchbook before you are up, he said, for if I remember correctly, you are up with the lark only when you have been up overnight. Well, you are the greater sinner of the two, yawned Stanton, for if I occasionally keep unseasonable hours at night, you do so habitually in the morning. Either you are not as brilliant as usual this evening, or else the country air makes me drowsy. Good night. We will take a ride tomorrow, and you can sketch 5 miles of fence if you find you cannot resist your mania for work. Perhaps Stanton had found his friend slightly preoccupied, for, in spite of the constraint he had put upon himself to appear as usual, the second and closer view of the face, which had taken so strong a hold upon his fancy, did not dissipate his first impressions. Indeed, they were deepened rather, for he saw again and more clearly the same marvelous capabilities in the features, and also their exasperating failure to make a beautiful face. He dreamed over his project some little time after his friend had retired, and the conclusion of his reverie was, I must soon make some progress in my experiment or else decamp, for that girl's contradictory face is a constant incentive to profanity. After seeing Mrs. Mayhew, however, he felt that justice required him to admit that the daughter was a natural and logical sequence, and in the mother he saw an element more hopelessly inartistic and disheartening than anything in the girl herself. For even if the latter could be changed, would not the shadow of the stout and dressy mother ever fall athwart the picture? Van Berg retired with a feeling that his project of illuminating a face by awakening a mind that, as yet, had slept, did not promise very brilliantly. What's that sound? Don't mind me, as I just listened to. It's your phone speaking?
No,
Oh, no, the talking. What is that?
like their sounds on speakerphone.
Oh, Dad's watching Studio C. Sorry, Sophia. Oh, dear. Oh, yeah! Have you seen that one, Sophia? Yes. I know. Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! We'll just do it for you. Intermission. Okay. Continuing on. Miss Mayhew tried to persuade herself that it was a relief not to see the critical artist at breakfast, nor to meet him as she strolled from the parlors to the piazza, and thence to the croquet ground, where she listlessly declined to take part in a game. There was, in truth, great need that her mind should be awakened and her whole nature radically changed, if it were a possible thing. A need shown by the fact that fair June morning blah, 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 blah. A need shown by the fact that, I'm telling you, these people, they added these little words just to trip me up, because there's not even existing. What kind of a word is that even? A need shown by the fact that which they do not have, fair June morning, with its fragrance and beauty, could not light up her face with its own freshness and gladness. The various notes of the birds were only sounds. The landscape, seen for the first time, was like a map of Switzerland. Do you want to close the door, Heidi? Not that we don't mind listening to Studio C. I love listening to my father laugh. It's very funny. So Heidi's just going to go and close the door because, not that we mind or anything. We'll go up and see what they do afterwards. Oh, P.S., Sophia, just a random note. I'm wearing Heidi's socks she gave me for my birthday. And I'm very fashionable and stylish in them right now. Just imagine me sitting on the couch.
I don't even know what they look like.
Oh, they're really cool. I'll send you a picture. What's that? Oh, ages ago, but this is good.
Were they for your birthday or were they for Christmas?
Either one. It was good. Both. Either one. Both. Christmas and birthday. I think it was birthday because you gave me tea. Hey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oop. Okay. Blah, blah. She listlessly is declining and all this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. The various notes of the birds were only sounds. The landscape, seen for the first time, was like the map of Switzerland, that, in the days of her geography lessons, gave her as vivid an idea of the country as a dry sermon does of heaven. Although her ears and eyes were so pretty, she was, in the deepest, truest sense of the word, deaf and blind. The lack of some petty and congenial excitement made time hang heavily on her hands, and clouded her face with ennui. Even her cousin had failed her, for he was down at the stables, making arrangements for the care of his bays and his carriage. Thus, from very idleness, she fell to nursing her small spite against the man whose voice had made such harsh discord with the honeyed chorus of flattery to which she was accustomed. She wished that he would appear, and that in some way she might show how little she cared for him or his opinion. But as he did not, she at last lounged to her room and sought to kill a few hours with a novel. Her wounded pride, however, induced her to dress quite elaborately for dinner, for she had faith in no better way of asserting her personality than that afforded by the toilette. She would teach him, by the admiration she excited in others, how mistaken he had been in his estimate, and her vanity whispered that even he could not look upon her beauty for any length of time without being won by it, as so many others had been. Oh, no, we don't have a problem with this at all. The change of seats having been effected, she scarcely thought it necessary to turn her back upon him while sitting at such a dim distance. Indeed, she was inclined to regret the change, for now her toilette and little airs, which she imagined to be so pretty, would be lost upon him. It would seem that they were, for Van Berg ate his dinner as quietly and chatted as unconcernedly with those about him as if she had no existence. Never had a man ignored her so completely before, and she felt that she could never forgive him. After the event of the day was over and the guests were circling and eddying through the halls and parlors and out on the piazza, Ida still had the annoyance of observing that Van Berg was utterly oblivious of her, as far as she could perceive. He spoke here and there with the ease and freedom of one familiar with society, and she saw more eyes following his tall form approvingly than were turned towards herself. Few gentlemen remained at the house during the week, and Miss Mayhew was not a favorite with her own sex. Those who most closely resembled her in character envied rather than admired her, and those who were better endowed and developed found fault even with her beauty from a moral point of view, as Van Berg had on artistic grounds. She consoled herself, however, with the thought that it was Saturday, and that the evening boat and trains would bring a number of gentlemen, among whom she told Stanton, exultantly, that she had some friends, moths, rather, whose wings were in danger of being singed. As the afternoon was not sultry, Stanton had said to his friend that they could enjoy their cigars. What? Again? These people, they're like obsessed and... this would be a face illumined, but it can't be because there's so much cigar smoke in it. Yeah, exactly. Yes, and I will drink another cup of coffee. I will drink my Mountain Dew. I will have a cigar. And a ride at the same time. They can't even, obviously they can't even, do that. Wow. Outdoors, on a horse. Not really. And there you go. That he would drive around with him in a few minutes. Ida overheard the remark, and quietly slipping off to her room, returned with her hat and shawl. As her cousin approached, she hastened down the steps, past Van Berg, exclaiming, "Oh, thank you, Ike. How good of you. I was dying for a ride. Don't trouble yourself. I can get in without aid." And she sprang lightly into the buggy before her cousin could utter a word. He turned with a look of comic dismay and depreciation to his friend, who stood laughing on the steps. Ida also could not resist her inclination to catch a glimpse of the artist's chagrin and disappointment, but she was provoked beyond measure to find him acting as if Stanton were the victim rather than himself. As the sweep of the road again brought them in view of the piazza, this impression was confirmed by seeing Van Berg stroll carelessly away, complacently puffing his cigar as if he had already dismissed her from his mind. "Really," grumbled Stanton, "I never had beauty and happiness thrust upon me so unexpectedly before." "Very well, then," retorted Ida. "Stop your horses and thrust me out into the road. I'd rather go back, even if I have to walk." "Oh, no. There is to be no going back for 2 hours or more. I once cured a horse of running away by making him run long after he wanted to stop. You seem to be learning your friend's hateful manners. I asked you this morning if you would like a drive, and you declined. I changed my mind. Very abruptly indeed, it seemed, since you took so much trouble to annoy my friend. It's a pity you failed." "I don't believe I failed. He is probably as cross as you are about it, only he can keep it to himself." "Oh, dove-like cheetah, thanks. And would you please drive while I light a cigar? I don't like anyone to smoke as near me as you are. If your theory in regard to Van Berg is correct, none of us will enjoy what we like this afternoon. Of course, I never smoke without a lady's permission, but unless quieted by a cigar, I'm a very reckless driver." And he enforced his words with a sharp crack of the whip, which sent the horses off like the wind. "Oh, stop them! Smoke. Do anything hateful you wish, so you don't break my neck. I will never ride with you again, and I wish I had never come to this horrid place. And if your sneering painter does not leave soon, I will." "I'm afraid Van Berg will survive, and you would only suffer from your spite. But come, since you have so sweetly permitted me to smoke, I'll make your penance as light as possible, and then we will consider our matters even between us, okay?" And away they bowled, up breezy hills and down into shady valleys, Stanton stolidly smoking, and Ida nursing her petty wrath. Two flitting ghosts, hastening to escape from the light of day, could not have seen less, or have felt less sympathy with the warm, beautiful scenes through which they were passing. There is no insulation so perfect as that of small, selfish natures preoccupied with a pike, or a peak. When late in the afternoon her cousin, with mock politeness, assisted her to alight at the entrance of the hotel, Ida was compelled to feel that she had indeed been the chief victim of her own spite. But, with the usual logic of human nature, she never thought of blaming herself, and her resentment was chiefly directed against the man whose every word and glance, although he was but a stranger, had seemed to possess a power to annoy and wound from the first. She felt an almost venomous desire to retaliate, but he appeared invulnerable in his quiet and easy superiority, while she, who expected, as a matter of course, that all masculine thoughts should follow her admiringly, had been compelled to see that his critical eyes had detected that in her which had awakened his contempt. "I'll teach him this evening, when my gentlemen friends arrive, how ridiculous are his airs," she muttered, as she went to her room and sought to enhance her beauty by all the arts that she was the mistress, of which she was the mistress. I'll show him that there are plenty who can see what he cannot, or will not. Because he is an artist, he need not think he can face me out of the knowledge of my beauty, the existence of which I have been assured of by so many eyes and tongues ever since I can remember. When she came down to await the arrival of the stages and carriages, she was indeed radiant with all the beauty of which she was then capable. Her neck and shoulders, with their exquisite lines and curves, whoa, too much TMI, whoa. Were okay, what is he trying to say? Okay. Were more suggestively revealed than hidden by a slight drapery of gauze-like illusion. This is terrible. Look at that hurt. Cover up, man. Too much skin. In the words of Nikki. Too much skin, man. Too much skin. Goodness. And her white rounded arms were bare. These white rounded... I know. I always think of like pudgy. Yes, I was like, oh my goodness, what on earth? I know. What I love is when they, especially when they say like Italians back then, like I was reading one book, it said, interjection, Sophia, said, oh yes, and this Italian girl did this, and her arm was dangling out the window or whatever, and it was white and plump. I'm like, I'm sorry, have you never seen an Italian in your life? I'm like, no Italian's arm that is like below 20 years old is usually white and plump. It's usually one or the other, or it's dark and skinny until they hit about 40, and then things happen, okay? All right, so they were white and rounded, okay. And still somehow she trod with the light, airy grace of youth. The still somehow was mine, and that was theirs. And yet with the assured manner of one who is looking forward to the familiar experience of a reigning belle. Van Berg, from his quiet corner of observation, was compelled to admit that, seen at her present distance, she almost embodied his best dreams, and might do so wholly, were there less of the fashionable art of the hour, and more of nature in her appearance. But he knew well that if she came nearer, and spoke so as to reveal herself, the fatal defect in her beauty would be as apparent as a black line running athwart the sculptured face of a Greek goddess. Man, I love the way he thinks. It's like, wow. The only question with him was, did the ominous deformity lie so near the surface that it could be refined away, or was it ingrained into the very material of her nature, thus forming an essential part of herself? He feared that the latter might be true, or that the remedy was far beyond his skill or power. But every glance he caught of the girl, as with her mother she paced the farther end of the piazza, deepened his regret that as an artist, that so much beauty should be in degrading bondage to a seeming fool. Okay, that was actually chapter 5. Well, we're on a jolly good road here. Everyone's so happy and getting along so well. It's just amazing. Okay, Sophia, so long for now. We're on to chapter 6. Okay, bye.